What's up everybody? Welcome back to Tbsp Cooking. Today I'm going to be making fried chicken, but not just any fried chicken, Nashville Hot Fried Chicken, which in my opinion is one of the best ways to eat it. Now when I was looking this up and trying to figure out what to make, I was really intimidated by making this recipe, but it turns out it's actually super easy to make. So without any further ado, let's get into it and I'll show you how to make this. It's going to taste delicious. Alright, so let's start this off with the chicken. What I'm going to do is take a whole chicken and dice it up into 10 pieces. Now you can just buy either like chicken thighs, chicken breasts, chicken drumsticks from the grocery store, and honestly that's going to be way easier. I'm just doing this because it looks cooler. So what you'll want to do is take a pair of scissors and cut the spine out of the chicken. And then take your knife and cut the breastbone. There's a little, you can just push down and it'll pop, and from there it'll be nice and easy to cut the bird in half. Then make shallow cuts around the joints, and you should be able to break them off, no problem. As you can see, I'm doing that here. Now on the chicken I had, there's a little bit of extra skin that I had to cut off that was just hanging, but as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. You just make shallow cuts around the joints, and they pop off quite easily after that. And they're separating the wing from the breast. Who doesn't like chicken wings? Now for the actual chicken breasts themselves, because they're so big, you're not going to want to fry them all as one large piece. It would take forever to cook them. So what I'm doing is cutting them in half. Make it way easier to fry. And by cutting them in half, then you get the 10 pieces of chicken. So also separate the drums from the thighs. And just to make it look nice, I've lined them all up. As you can see, 10 pieces of chicken ready to be fried. So what you'll want to do now is brine the chicken. Normally with fried chicken what you want to do is brine it overnight in buttermilk, but Nashville Hot Chicken is a little different. Throw it in a high-walled baking sheet like I have here, and you'll want to dry brine it instead, which is covering it in kosher salt and some black pepper, covering and letting it sit for at least 4 hours in the fridge. However, I would recommend letting it sit overnight. That's what I ended up doing. As you can see, I generously coated it in kosher salt and black pepper, covering it in plastic wrap like I said, and I'm going to let it sit overnight in the fridge. The next day when you're ready to fry your chicken, take it out of the fridge and get ready to go. So in either like a pan, baking sheet, or a pie plate as I'm using, put about 1.5 to 2 cups of buttermilk in, 2 large eggs, crack them and put them in. And then a few dashes of your favorite hot sauce. I happen to like Frank's. What's that saying about Frank's? And then a key ingredient in Nashville Hot Chicken is a dash of pickle juice, about a tablespoon or so. Anyways, then mix that up until it's all good and combined. Now let's talk about the dredge. You're going to want to put in about 2 cups of all-purpose flour into a bowl, along with about a tablespoon of kosher salt. Excuse me, I got a bunch of flour on me, got to dust that off. And whisk it all together until it's good and combined. From there, what you're going to want to do is take your chicken, dunk it in your mixture, then in the dredge, then in the mixture again, then in the dredge again, then onto your wire rack in a rimmed baking sheet. As you can see, that's what I'm doing here. Now, there's a 2-hand method where you use one hand to touch the chicken, the other hand to cover it in the flour. I screwed it up almost automatically. You end up getting your hands just covered in egg and flour, and it gums it up. Dipping them twice in the flour is going to make the batter nice and craggly and give it a nice look and taste once it's fried. So we're back to it. Oh, wait a minute. That's not me. Rose, what are you doing? Get out of the way. Where was I? Okay, so let's talk about the actual hot part of the Nashville Hot Chicken. So what you're going to want to do is take 3 tablespoons of cayenne pepper. That's right, 3 tablespoons. This is hot chicken after all. Add in a tablespoon of crushed black pepper, a teaspoon of smoked paprika, or you can use regular paprika, a teaspoon of garlic powder, a teaspoon of brown sugar, and a teaspoon of kosher salt, and then mix it all together. From there, set it aside because now it's time to start frying. Fill your pot or Dutch oven with vegetable oil and heat to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I highly recommend getting one of those digital read thermometers. From there, take your chicken and slowly lower into the oil. I would suggest dropping it away from you because it might splash like what you just saw there. And apparently I can't even follow my own recommendation because I just laid it towards me. So anyways, you're going to want to fry these for about 7 or 8 minutes. Now if you're shallow frying it, 7 or 8 minutes per side, but if you have it fully submerged like I do, about 7 or 8 minutes total. Now you can use the digital read thermometer to measure the internal temperature. Once it hits 165 degrees, it's done. Now what you'll want to do from there, while you're frying the rest of your chicken, put it on a wire rack and a rimmed baking sheet and put it in an oven at 350 degrees just to keep it warm so it doesn't cool down while you're frying the rest of your chicken. Look at all that. It looks fantastic. I can't wait to start eating this stuff. Alright, going to put it back in the oven for just a couple of more seconds while we talk about the hot sauce. So take the spices that you pre-mixed and ladle in some of the oil you were frying in. I'm using about 2.5 ladlefuls of the oil, and you're going to mix it all together. Because what you're going to do from here is take the chicken and brush the hot oil onto the chicken. Make sure that both the oil and the chicken are still really, really hot when you do this. Don't wait, like get it done right away, because if you apply the oil while the chicken is still hot, it's not going to make the chicken soggy. Make sure they're good and coated, and then once they are, flip them over and get the back sides of them as well. Now you'll notice on the left hand side there's 3 pieces of fried chicken that haven't been covered in the hot sauce yet. That's because my wife steadfastly refused to eat the hot sauce. So I ended up making something a little bit different for her. I ended up using 1 tablespoon of cayenne pepper, the same other spices, but 1 tablespoon of cayenne pepper, and I ended up pouring a few, like about a tablespoon of honey in as well. And that's what I made for her. Anyways, just covering the last remaining 3 pieces with the different sauce at the request of my wife. It looks a little different, the color's slightly different, and it looks sweeter. I mean, it obviously is because there's honey in it. But anyways, there's all the chicken fully coated. It looks fantastic. So let's talk about presentation. Typically, a Nashville Hot Chicken will be served on a slice of white bread with pickle chips on top of it. Now, I don't happen to have pickled chips, but I do have just regular old sliced dill pickles, so that's what I'm going to use here. Alright, let's have a little taste test of the chicken. As you can see, it's just piping hot. There's still tons of steam coming off of it. But wow, is it ever good? The spice isn't actually as hot as you would think. Like a lot of people saying, wow, that's hot, but it's not bad. It's actually quite flavorful. It's delicious, but it's not nearly as hot as I was expecting. You should definitely try making this at home. It's definitely worth the effort. You can have Nashville Hot Chicken in your own home. But that's the end of the episode. I hope you like what you saw here today. If you did, maybe leave a comment, like the video, or subscribe to my channel. We'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.